Hey everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Movies for Life YouTube channel. And welcome to this 1982 horror movie review as part of my overall 1980s horror movies series to finish up the year here. As you can probably tell or probably hear, I'm fighting a lot of congestion and basically spent all Christmas week at home with a bad head cold or upper respiratory thing, whatever's going on. My whole family did actually, so that's wonderful. But we're going to do our Christmas celebrating next week and then the following weekend. So we're still going to get it all in. But I just wanted to bring that to light that I do know I sound like I got a few ducks crammed down my throat. Anyway, with that being said, the movie we're going to take a look at today, the last two, including this one, I don't have the physical media for. These are ones that I streamed online. But the movie we're going to talk about today is entitled Dark Sanity from 1982, also known as, or also released as Straight Jacket. So let's just go ahead and talk about Dark Sanity. So Dark Sanity is a 1982 American psychological slasher film directed by Martin Green and starring Aldo Ray, Chuck Jameson, and Corey Clark. It follows a recovering alcoholic woman who begins suffering disturbing psychic visions in her new home, the site of a brutal murder. So, Karen Nichols is a recovering alcoholic who is plagued by strange visions that may be psychic in origin. After being released from a hospital, Karen and her businessman husband, Alan, relocate from San Diego to a home in the Los Angeles hills. Just after moving in, Karen meets her neighbor, Madge Harper, a talkative middle-aged woman who resides across the street with her husband, Henry. She also meets Benny, a developmentally disabled landscaper who manicures the yards in the neighborhood. When Alan invites his boss and his boss's wife for dinner, Karen is disturbed by visions of a severed hand, in her bedroom, and a cloaked figure on the staircase. Unnerved, Karen attends an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, but is again plagued by visions and flees. Karen nearly relapses in a bar, but is stopped by Larry Craig, a retired police sergeant who investigated a brutal axe murder that occurred in Karen's house 1 year earlier. The victim, Lucy Duncan, was a doppelganger for Karen, who was apparently murdered by her jealous son. Larry recounts to Karen that he also experienced strange occurrences in the home and that Lucy's severed head was never located. So, yeah, that's what gets you started. That's the setup and the premise. The beginning of Dark Sanity, released as Straight Jacket from 1982. As far as the cast goes, we have Aldo Ray as Larry Craig, Corey Clark as Karen Nichols, Chuck Jameson as Alan Nichols, Bobby Holt as Madge Harper, Andy Gwynn as Henry Harper, and Timothy McCormack as Benny. So yeah, that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for the 1982 psychological slasher movie Dark Sanity. This movie's pretty forgettable if I'm being honest about it. I don't really have too much to say about it, especially in a positive sense, but let's just go ahead and talk about the few things that I did enjoy about the movie. It does have sort of an interesting twist having to do with characters who appear to be having flashbacks in the movie to this murder. What you find out towards the end, they're actually not flashbacks, they're premonitions. That kind of changes and kind of turns the whole movie onto its head, so to speak. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and how that has the movie play out in the last act, knowing that they were premonitions as opposed to flashbacks. So in other words, it's what they see is what's coming as opposed to what happened before. So that was interesting that I give them credit for. The twist reveal of the killer was also pretty well done in the sense that I didn't see it coming. This particular character in the movie that is prevalent, but they do a decent enough job of throwing enough subterfuge. I just wanted to say that word, that's why I put it in my notes. Enough subterfuge to throw off the viewer as you're watching the movie. Of course, they have your red herrings, they have your slow-witted gardener type of Benny. They have this woman who was murdered the year earlier, her son at a mental institution, who's 13 cans short of a 12-pack. So that, they have the typical sort of slasher tropes in that regard. But I don't know. I thought that they got me. I didn't see that coming, so I have to give them credit for that. Some of the dialogue and the insults between the characters at times when they're fighting made me laugh. Mainly when Alan, Karen's husband, Alan, when he's in a drunken rant at the end after being fired, he calls her, "You lousy pig face bitch." That kind of made me laugh. And there's some other lines like that that are kind of that so bad it's good or so bad it's funny at least sort of line delivery there. So yeah, those are my pros. That's all I could come up with for this movie. I tried. As far as cons go, overall, guys, it's just not a very well put together movie from the pacing to the look of the film, the filming overall of the movie to the effects and the acting. Just very amateurish and very forgettable overall, in my opinion. The movie is incredibly boring. If you are having trouble falling asleep, I would recommend checking this. I would recommend watching this on streaming. You can find it on YouTube. That's where I watched it. But yeah, it's just like 80% of it are characters talking to each other. There's very little action. Really, the only action throughout the movie are these flashback sequences, and they have their own set of problems, which I'll get into. But yeah, overall, it's just a really boring horror movie. The acting is really bad and cheesy, and not in a good, fun way. It's really cringe. The dialogue delivery, as I said, it's funny at times, but it also just adds to how bad the acting is. Even Aldo Ray, who's kind of well known during this time, his character was uninteresting and just kind of. I didn't find his acting all that well. Corey Clark, who played Karen, the main character, her acting certainly wasn't good. Her husband, who basically Alan ends up turning into be an asshole after at the beginning of the movie. There's not really much of a transition of him going from this loving, supportive husband to just taking all his anger and frustrations out on his wife and these visions that she has. That just didn't feel natural. So yeah, guys, the acting is bottom shelf for sure in this movie. There are really no kills in the movie, and definitely no blood or gore. There's also really no atmosphere either that kept me engaged in the movie, and none of the characters kept me engaged in the movie. So it's kind of hard for me to put a positive spin on this movie when you don't have characters that engage me, atmosphere that engages me, and there's no kills or gore in the movie. I mean, what are we doing here? Um, and then my final con is the killer's attack at the end once they're revealed is laughable as they spin around and don't come close to actually hitting anyone. And they're also like yelling out things like you're not gonna get him again, you're not gonna steal him away for whatever the hell the character says. Just and then ends up spinning themselves out of a window and injuring themselves. I mean, my God, it's just a terrible way to end the movie. And actually, that's not the very end. Then they go and, of course, we have to get our exposition dumped to why this character was motivated to be the killer. And then you get the maniacal laugh, which it's kind of reminiscent of Chris from Friday the 13th Part 3 at the end of that movie. But not, that's about the only thing that this movie has in common with that one. Yeah, I just really didn't enjoy this movie, guys. I don't ever see myself rewatching it or certainly buying it on physical media if it does exist. I don't even know if it does. But I'm going to give Dark Sanity a 3.5 out of 10. And as I said, unless you're looking for a reason to fall asleep or you need you need something to get you to sleep, I'm not going to recommend checking out this movie. But 3.5 out of 10 for Dark Sanity from 1982. Go ahead and comment down below if you guys have seen this movie. If you got more out of it than I did, or if you agree, comment down below. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews and content, if you haven't subscribed already, that is. But with all that being said, I hope everybody did have a good Christmas, those of you that celebrate it. Like I said, I was on the mend, and I'm still on the mend. Hopefully my New Year's doesn't look like my Christmas. And I can kick this pretty quickly here. But anyway, one more review to come for the 1980s horror series for the year 1982 to wrap up this year. And then, of course, I'll have my top 20 horror movies for 1982. That'll be the last video to come up around December 30th. So with all that being said, thank you for watching. Hope you're doing well. And as always, stay scared. Bye.